I've played Fruit Until Dawn twice now. I think it's a great game. Um, really well made, really well acted. The story, it follows a great path. Although the whole, maybe it's because I was too young when I played it. Because the first time I played it, I was 11. The second time, I was 13. And I feel like that it suddenly went from something that was real, like there wasn't anything supernatural about it, and then all of a sudden it's about the Wendigo. It felt weird and just a bit not well done to me. But maybe there were some clues that I just didn't pick up on because I was too young and I was just too focused on the overall story rather than all the small details. Until Dawn, like at a surface level, seems like something that would be good for a film adaptation. But the problem is that because choice plays a huge matter in the game, what are you going to do for this? Like, who are you going to kill off? And just what overall plot are you going to follow? Or is it just going to be nothing at all like the game, other than just it's a horror film set in a cabin in the woods? And if that's the case, they're just adding the Until Dawn title for money, and it's just a fucking rip off because we literally have a horror film called Cabin in the Woods, and I haven't seen it, but I know that it takes place in a cabin in the fucking woods, and that this is going to be way too similar. Get that as like, whatever. No point in explaining it, but let's just get into this. As I said, I haven't played the game since 2017, I believe, but I remember I'm only 23 seconds into this, and this is something completely different. I get that because it's a film route in the game, there are some details they need to add that the game doesn't provide because it's a fucking game and it doesn't need to provide those details. But what I remember from the game is that Rami Malek's character had invited everyone up to the cabin and that he sort of faked a whole horror scenario. That's what brought everyone to the cabin. It was him inviting everyone up, but now all of a sudden whoever this is supposed to be, I don't remember their names, and I don't really remember much of the characters other than Rami Malek. I know Hayden Panettiere, how the fuck you pronounce her name, voiced one of the characters, but I only really remember Rami Malek. But whoever this is looking for her sister. I don't remember there being anything like that in the games. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there was. And it's just been 8 years since I played it. Who knows? So far, this is. How far am I? 50 seconds. So far, this is just. It seems like the writers didn't do any research on what the plot of the game is. All they heard was just cabin in the woods. Just setting. Right, okay, we'll write a film about that. But there are so many films that have that very simple premise. Like, last year we had The Strangers Chapter 1, and hell, I think the original Strangers was also exactly the fucking same. So, like, it is overdone to hell. The only way that you could make it somewhat unique, at least for a film, would be to have an accurate adaptation of the game. But this does not seem to follow any fucking plot whatsoever. Like, imagine if the Mario movie was an action film set in Vietnam. Like that's how far apart this is from the source material. Okay, yeah, so this just seems like I remember the whole clown mask thing, and that was Rami Malek's character. But from what I remember, he didn't actually kill anyone. I mean, there was that one scene where you had the choice between killing him and killing one of the other guys, and if you choose to kill him, it's just a fake out. He doesn't actually die. But if you choose to kill the other guy, he dies for real. And yeah, that is Rami Malek's fault, but he didn't actually outright do it himself, if you know what I mean. So what the fuck is up with this? This is a fucking Groundhog Day movie. What? That that just didn't happen though. Where have they pulled that from? I mean, yeah, it's unique for a horror film. I don't think I've ever seen a horror film like that. But still, what the fuck? Okay, there was effects there with the Wendigo and the slug thing, even though that wasn't in the source material. Like, my overall opinion is this seems like it could be a very interesting film. It could be quite good, but it's just the call it Until Dawn is outright offensive. It should, like, same way that with Hellboy the Crooked Man, when I said in my reaction to that it seems like a good film, it just doesn't seem like a Hellboy film, and I know I changed my mind on that when I seen the film. I don't think I'm going to change my mind on that when I see this, if I see this, because it just, I don't even know what else to say. Like, I've said what I have to say. Um, Cinematography seems quite good as well. I'm pretty sure it's directed by the same guy that directed the Shazam films. This is exactly what we need from a Daredevil reboot. Like, so far, basically all this trailer has been. I'm 1 minute in exactly. So far, shit. So far, it's done that same thing that trailers do, where they'll show one main scene and then they'll cut to like a millisecond of some other scenes while they continue the audio of that main scene. I'm not saying that it's bad that it's copying the same thing other trailers do. It's just I want to point out that that main scene it has just that dialogue, and the dialogue is good. Like you got your two characters talking, and it is the same as say Game of Thrones. It's done that well. What I mean by that is that there are some things where it's done not so well, or it's done in a way that I just find boring. Arcane and Andor, for example, I find boring, but Game of Thrones I find interesting. This is Game of Thrones. This is not Arcane and Andor. Thank God. I mean, you got some action in there. I'm not getting enough of the action to say it's of the same quality as the Netflix series, but it doesn't seem bad. What I'm seeing, I'll admit, I haven't seen the Punisher show. I watched the first episode and I couldn't get into it, to be honest. I'm gonna give it a second chance though. But this is a really good way to reintroduce Frank. I don't like the fact that the trailer seems to have exaggerated the bone breaking. Like it doesn't sound the way that it's going to sound in the actual show when you watch those particular scenes. Like I'll just play it just a wee bit, not enough to get copyright strike. That's not what it's going to sound like in the actual show, and it seems like they've increased the volume of it and made it seem more violent to try and entice people. But if this is of the same quality as the Netflix show, you don't need to do that. Or it's it's not of the same quality, it's of a worse quality, and they're just making it seem like it's of the same quality. Hopefully that's not what's going on. But something that's concerning is the fact that this year we are going to get 10 MCU projects. Like, I'm tired of them promising, oh, we're going to stop making so many projects as we were. So, in 2021, we got 4 films and 4 shows. 2022, we got 4 films, 4 shows, and 2 specials. 2023, we got, I think, 2 films, and we got Secret Invasion, What If. There might be something else I'm thinking about. Loki, we got Loki in 2023 as well. And then 2024, we got 1 film, and 4 shows. Yeah, X-Men '97 isn't part of the MCU, but it's still the same team, so it still counts as something that is being made. Um, and this year, this month we're getting the Spider-Man show. I forget what they call it because it's gone through a couple of name changes. Next month we're getting Captain America. In March we're getting this. In I don't think we're getting anything in April. In May we're getting Thunderbolts. In June we're getting, I believe it's a Wakanda series. Excuse me. July we're getting Fantastic Four. Sorry about that. I don't remember where it was because it's been a while. I think I was talking about like all the things that are coming out. I think got up the Fantastic Four in July. June, I'm pretty sure we're getting a Vision series. Maybe that's next year. I'm not sure. August, we're getting. Sorry, it was August. We're getting the Wakanda series. I might have said that we're getting the Wakanda series in June, but it's August. September, we're not getting anything. October, we're getting Marvel Zombies. I don't remember what we're getting in November. And in December, I think it's the Wonder Man series. It's far too much. I know that Marvel split up into multiple teams. We have regular Marvel Studios who handles the films and possibly the shows. I'm not sure. We've got Marvel Animation who do the animated shit, which that's just Amazing Spider-Man as far Marvel Zombies as far as I'm aware. So it's it's like Call of Duty where it's not really that they're spending only 1 year developing these games. Is that they're taking 2/3 years because they're taking turns, but because Kevin Feige is overseeing everything, I would still consider that it's the whole machine is making 10 things in 1 year. So they need to cut back immediately. Delay everything. Make sure focus on one project at a time. Since the Spider-Man cartoon is the one that we're getting the soonest, delay it. Go through it. Make sure that it is definitely of a good standard. If it isn't, keep delaying it. Fix it. Then push it out. Then go on to the next thing. Do the same thing over and over until it's all released. I get that they've made their schedules, but they should expand on it. And instead of having, say, 50 projects in the next 10 years, make it 50 projects in the next 20 years. Something like that. But I don't think there's anything left from the trailer, but I'll finish it anyway, just in case. I'm not a fan of this animation. I get that they're trying to make it look like the classic comics from the 60s, but it looked good in the comics because the comics weren't moving. I think the fact that this is television, it moves, it doesn't look good. It's the same thing that with Hellboy, that game, Web of. I thought it was called Web of Weird, but it's like WYRD. It's pronounced differently. That also was intentionally made to look like the Hellboy comics, and the art of the Hellboy comics looks good. In the game, not so much. So if if they wanted to do that, they should have tried to make it more like Spider-Verse, because Spider-Verse does kind of do both. It looks like a comic, and it's done well. Um, I don't know what the name of that type of animation is, but Spider Verse did it, Puss in Boots did it, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film did it, and it all looked fucking amazing. This, it just, it's a bit of an eyesore, to be honest. I get the Peter Parker, especially since this is the very start of his career, is supposed to be just an absolute fucking moron, like socially. But that thing where he was like, "Oh, it's just me, Petey, Parky, whatever the fuck he said," that was cringe. Like, that was the equivalent of that joke from the Ghostbusters trailer, and it was just the trailer that he said this, where it was like, we're the Ghostbusters, and guess what? Busting makes me feel good, blah, blah, blah. They should turn to the comics to see how to do Peter Parker being socially awkward, like, well. Because, in the comics, it's done well. And they didn't do it as much for the films, but it still was there. They should have turned to those. I'm just trying to fucking pause. I do like that prototype costume. The only thing is, if I go back here, whoops, I went too far. I'll talk about that in a minute. Hold on. This looks good for the sort of prototype costume, but the problem I have with it is the eyes. In Homecoming, you were able to see the prototype suit that he uses before Tony Stark gave him the suit, and the eyes were basically just goggles, but these look like actual Spider-Man eyes, and it doesn't make sense. It's like in Arkham Origins, the suit that Batman wears looks like it is a full suit of armor, whereas in Arkham Asylum, it's just a rubber suit. Like, really, it's not consistent. Like, why would you downgrade? And this is what it seems like. Oh, and that thing about from the studio that brought you X-Men '97. Yeah, I loved X-Men '97. X-Men '97 was great and was a massive success. The problem is that it's not the same writer. Like, Bo DeMayo, or whatever the fuck the guy's name is, he was the writer for season one. He was the reason why it was such a massive fucking success, because he wrote a really good show. He's gone now because allegedly he was sexually harassing his coworkers or something like that. So that meme of it's like, from the studio that brought you blah blah blah, but that thing came out a while back, and everyone who worked on that no longer works at the company. Basically the same. So they've made Harry and Norman Osborn black in the show. It. I mean, I do have a problem with it, but I have more of a problem with the fact that, like, why does Harry look so fucking weird? I kinda just did a whole rant about the animation being not good looking, in my opinion. But, and yeah, this isn't a flattering still, but it's just, I've I've seen a picture of what Norman looks like in the show, and he just looks like the way Norman looks in the comics, but he's black. Like that, you know. I think it's mostly the hair is making it look weird. I don't know. Although, well, something that I find it very interesting is the fact that, in the comics Norman has cornrows or something like that, which it's not something you really see on white people. Hell, there's the only time you really see it is when people argue about it, like, oh, it's racist for white people to have cornrows. So making Norman Osborn black is, at least that aspect isn't going to look weird. And if they ever do a live action MCU Norman Osborn, they're gonna have to get a black person now to play him. So they're kind of dodging a bullet. I have a feeling that something that they're gonna forget about is that overall this is connected to the MCU. This is Tom Holland's Peter Parker. It's just Tom Holland will be voicing Spider-Man. I also think they're going to forget what year this is supposed to take place in, because Homecoming takes place in 2017, and I have a feeling that this show they're going to do something that it doesn't outright say it takes place in 2025, but it'll be something that didn't exist back in 2017. For example, TikTok, like that thing where he's live streaming, and I just have a feeling that they're going to show that it will be something like TikTok, or they'll mention someone who is famous now but wasn't famous back in 2017. Excuse me. So I'm gonna be very wary, if that's the correct word, about that when I watch the show. I'm hoping that they don't have any continuity errors with it. And that seems like a continuity error. I haven't seen Civil War since it came out, which was at this point nearly 9 years ago. But from what I remember, I mean, yeah, technically it's possible for this to work with Peter working for Harry Osborn and having these advanced suits, but it's kind of implied in the scene in Civil War where Tony talks to Peter for the first time that Peter has always been working on his own, that he's always had just these homemade suits and homemade devices. So they need to be very, very fucking careful of this, because it could very easily become a continuity error. They're treading on thin ice right now because, as I said, they can just sort of find a way to cover it up, if you know what I mean. I haven't seen any of the Spider-Man cartoons, but I'm hoping there's something that this show does that I don't know if the others have done it or not. Is I've always wanted to see a show or a film or something like that where it is both an action and a teen drama. Like, imagine Skins, but there's action in it. And I'm not saying that this would be an improvement to Skins, but I'm just thinking, like, my idea for a show would be about a bunch of teenagers who work to save the world. Then, like, whether it be they're superheroes, or they solve murders, or they catch terrorists or something like that. But then, like, they do that by night, and then by day they're in school, and they have high school problems like that everyone else has. I think that's a really interesting concept for a show, and it probably does exist out there somewhere, and I just don't know of it. But it's just something that I've always wanted to see.